G'day. Today we're going to talk about what type of boat. This is a big topic for discussion because there's so many variables when it comes to buying a boat, and when you make the decision to get your boat, you're kind of going to be stuck with it for a while. Not like a pair of shoes or a dress. You can think, oh, screw it, I'm going to throw it in the cupboard and I'll never use it again. Buying a boat's a big consideration, and there's a lot of stuff that you need to think about. I can't tell you the type of boat that's going to be best for you, and you may not even know what type of boat is best for you, but I'm going to try and walk through some of the considerations so that you can at least try and narrow down your hunt. And as is often the case with most of us, it's going to come down to budget. In my case, I just kind of started going looking for another boat 5 years ago and stumbled upon this boat, Morningside, that I'm on now. It was one of those things that just came about. I kind of had an idea of what I was looking for, and the opportunity arose and there I am. So today we're going to try and walk through as best we can, make some sort of semblance of order in the process of what type of boat. Now, the different types of boats that we've got are kind of simple. We've got catamarans, sailing, monohull, sailing, powerboat. In the subcategories, let's call them, we've got timber or fiberglass, we've got steel, got ketches, that's two masts on a sailing boat. So there's a whole range of things that we're going to try and walk through these one at a time, just to get you a bit of understanding about the implications of the type of boat that you're going to end up with. Two different topics to start with. One, primary considerations. What are they? The primary considerations is your purchase budget. How much are you going to spend? Are you going to spend 40 grand? Are you going to spend 400 grand? Are you going to spend 4 million? That's a big step to start with. The second of the primary consideration, my opinion only, don't forget this, you'll probably find your own, but the second of the primary considerations is the ongoing costs, like how much is it going to cost to run engines and fuel, and how much is it going to cost to berth it in marinas when you stop in, and how much is it going to cost when you have to pull it out and anti-foul it and do work on the hard stand. They're your primary considerations as I see them. Your secondary considerations are probably just as important, but these come with the fine-tuning of your decision making when purchasing a boat. You want to talk about your experience and consider how much experience have you got. Can you handle a big boat? Can you handle a catamaran or a monohull? Or what are you going to be comfortable and safe with? Because safety and comfort are two key factors, because when you've got both of those going on, you're going to have a better time. What do you want to do with your boat? Do you want to go and do ocean passages and go around the world, or are you just happy like I am to bumble around up and down a coastline of 500 or 700 nautical miles? Another consideration, a secondary consideration, is what likely maintenance is there going to be. Like if you've got a fiberglass boat, there's going to be work required on the hull and on the fiberglass components. If it's timber, same deal. Probably considerably more maintenance to do with timber. And then if there's steel, which is what my boat here is, it can be a pain in the ass, but I love it, like there's always rust appearing somewhere and you just have to stay on top of it. So likely maintenance that you're going to expect to have in the future is a consideration. Handling of the boat is another consideration. Typically the bigger the boat, sometimes the more difficult to manoeuvre in and out of marinas and tight areas. If you've got a big monohull, whether that's power or sail, you might have a bow thruster in it which helps you to manoeuvre the boat. But handling is also a big consideration. Safety is a cracker. It's way up there with all of your considerations. Is it a safe boat? Is the hull integrity good? Is it a strong hull? Is it a hull that's in good condition? All of these types of things, and safety is pretty much paramount. And then of course the other thing on the secondary considerations is just the comfort. Can you walk around in the boat, or are you going to have to be on your hands and knees? Is it too big to clean and maintain? Is it too small for your desired lifestyle? All these things need to be considered. And one of the things that you might like to do, as I think I've mentioned earlier, get on down to your local yacht club, put your hand up, join the club, and just do whatever you can to get on a range of boats so you can get a feel for them. And that's probably the most important thing to do before you actually part with cash. Just on a side note, you may notice that there's a bit of swaying and all that nonsense going on here. I've got my camera on a gimbal and I'm sitting on the boat and it's blowing the air off your head outside at the moment, so the boat's rocking around a bit but the gimbal's compensating. That's why it might seem like my whole world is just gently rocking backwards and forwards. The different types of boats that you're going to have, in the sailing category, let's call it, you've got a sailing monohull, that's one hull. You've got a sailing catamaran, two hulls. You've got a sailing ketch, which is two masts. That's what I have here, is a two-masted vessel. You've got a power monohull and you've got a power catamaran. That is a motor cruiser, no sails, no nonsense up there. Turn an ignition and off you go. So they're the different types of boats that you've got. First off, we're going to have a look at a sailing monohull and have a look at the pros and cons. And then we're going to have a look at a sailing catamaran. And here's some pros and cons. Then we're going to have a look at a sailing ketch. Pros and cons again. And then a powered monohull, a few pros and cons. And then a power catamaran. That is powerboat, two hulls, two engines. Here's some pros and cons. When you consider a sailing monohull, let's call it a sloop, one mast. Typically the bigger the boat, the higher the likelihood that you'll need experienced people on board to handle the boat with the sails and things. And with a sailing ketch, that's two masts, the ketch design came about to support and accommodate the needs of short-handed crews. Short-handed being there's only one or two people on the boat. And with a ketch, you've got different configurations of sails that you can put up that doesn't require one or two people to be working with a massive big mainsail. You have a 50 or 60 foot boat, often you might need three people just to go sailing somewhere. So you've got to take those things into consideration. I bought a steel boat, a non-production boat, and I make reference to a production boat as being like a moulded fiberglass Beneteau or something like that. They're beautiful boats, but everything is moulded fiberglass. I couldn't hack into those with a saw and change something as easily as I can on a non-production boat. That's a consideration as well. Then when you get into, of course, catamarans, whether that's sailing or power catamarans, one of the big considerations you've got with catamarans is getting into a marina. We have a roughly 12 or 13 foot beam, that is the width of the boat. And a lot of catamarans are going to be twice that, or maybe half again. And often, because of the extra width of the boat, of the catamaran, you're going to pay certainly more, sometimes double, just to go into a marina to berth. The other obvious thing too that you've got, I have one engine on here that I'm told is going to outlive me. It's probably 30 or 40 years old. It's a 3-cylinder Lister engine. It just keeps chugging away day in, day out. But then when you've got a catamaran, you're going to have two engines and you've got two hulls to look after. So those are considerations. Doesn't make a catamaran out of the question, and it comes down to personal preferences as well. I have a monohull primarily because I saw the boat and I found the boat, the price was right, and it was a project, as I think I mentioned in an episode earlier. This started out as a project for me, and it's become my home, and I love it. Some people don't like the movement of a catamaran, some people don't like the movement of a monohull. A monohull will tend to have a bit of a grandfather clock type thing, or a pendulum. Catamarans tend to have a slightly different manoeuvre, but don't take my word for it. Get off your ass and go out and find a monohull and find a catamaran and turn up with a bottle of wine or a box of beer and fill it for yourself. And then of course the other thing that you've got to consider, if you don't want to do the sailing, a powerboat or a motorboat is an option, might be an option for you. And again, it also comes down to dollars and cents. You're interested in the running costs, and like what the fuel burn is. We have boats wandering around us all the time here, these big 80-foot white boats that push along at, I don't know, 30 knots or 20 knots, that are burning 500 litres of diesel an hour, which is just ridiculous. Whereas my old girl here, it'll burn 4 or 5 litres an hour, and when I'm using the engine, we've got the sails. When the sail's up, the engine's off and off. Doesn't cost anything to run, it's just the wind. So there's just some more considerations when you're looking at the type of boat. And there's always a trade-off. You know, you've got the catamaran with their beautiful big deck space, but they're wider and they're more difficult in marinas. And you've usually got 2 engines. A catamaran with 1 engine, really difficult to manoeuvre. So you kind of really want 2 engines. Let's just talk for a moment about the different types of construction. The old classical, timber of course, and again we'll do the pros and the cons. Timber also has a bit of romance and charm to it as well, as the people just love the timber boats and can deal with the relatively higher maintenance required to ensure that you don't get rot and the planks are all together. And if you've got questions about it, ask me. I'll go and find someone who's into the timber things and we'll have a talk to them. So timber is a beautiful material for a boat. And some of the most beautiful boats that you'll see are timber with varnish everywhere, but there is a lot of upkeep. The next one is that we have here is steel. Our hull is 5mm plated steel, so it's a lot more solid than timber and fiberglass. Downside is, yes, there's always going to be rust, and if there is something that's rusted out, well, we get a grinder, we cut it out, we weld another plate in, off we go and continue on with life. And then of course there's GRP, and GRP stands for glass reinforced plastic, basically referred to as fiberglass. Fiberglass are really good. They're relatively light. Some people just swear by them, others won't go near them. There's all sorts of problems you can get in any type of boat. You can get rot and worms in timber, you can get rust and things like electrolysis and things in steel, you can get osmosis and all sorts of problems with fiberglass or GRP. You hit something with GRP like a rock, chances are you might punch a hole through it like this, but maybe you run into something with a steel boat and it might just seep, so you can get a bit of chewing gum and plug it in until you can get out of the water. Here's a brief summary of the considerations and some of the things that we've talked about, okay? There's going to be the purchase budget, there's going to be ongoing expenses, there's going to be choosing a large boat or a small boat. That will be basically driven by both your budget and your experience levels and what you want to do. And then of course there's what type of boat. Are you going to be getting a fiberglass boat? Are you going to be getting a steel boat or a timber boat? Again, these things will all come down to your budget, ongoing expenses, what you want to do and those types of things. And at the end of the day, you'll probably turn up at a marina one day and there's going to be a boat there and it's going to be nothing like what you expected, but you're going to buy the damn thing. And that's often how it happens too. So at least you'll be a little bit more informed, have a better understanding of what you're doing, and you'll be able to make the right decision and one that you're going to be really happy with. So, how much fun was that? I hope it hasn't been too daunting. I hope it hasn't been too scary, because the message is that you've just got to get to know some shit, have a bit of a plan, figure out where you want to go, and then once you get there doing it, yeah, it's going to be a bit scary, but hell, it's exciting. It's the most enjoyable way to live. And now to conclude, I want to thank you for your time. Be patient, get in touch if you need a hand with anything, and just to show you that there's another side to all this daunting buying of boats and shit, I'm going to give you a minute or two of just some beautiful places that we've been in the last couple of months, okay? Enjoy, see you next time, take care, bye bye.